What if everything you thought you knew about overnight success was wrong? What if the real story wasn't in the headlines, wasn't in the fake deals, wasn't in the billion-dollar numbers that went viral across every corner of the internet, but in something quieter, something harder, something that took 15 years of blood and sacrifice before a single person outside the Philippines even knew her name? Because here's the thing about Alex. She didn't come out of nowhere. She came out of somewhere very specific. And when you understand where that somewhere is, everything about her rise starts to make a completely different kind of sense. So let's go back. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Because this story doesn't start in Miami. It doesn't start at the WTA Tour. It starts in Quezon City, Philippines, in 2005, with a little girl who picked up a racket before most kids her age had even figured out how to tie their shoes. Alex grew up in a household built on discipline. Her mother was tried. Her mother was a national swimmer, a bronze medalist at the 1985 Southeast Asian Games, and eventually the chief financial officer of Globe Telecom, one of the biggest corporations in the entire country. Her father was a businessman. So this wasn't a family that needed tennis to survive. This was a family that understood what it meant to pursue something at the highest possible level. And from the time Alex could hold a racket, she was already chasing something the rest of the world couldn't see yet. By the time she was 8 years old, Globe Telecom had already signed her as a brand ambassador. Let that sit for a second. A company that size, run in part by her own mother, looked at this little girl and said, yes, she is the face we want, not someday, now. That is not normal, that is not luck. That is a level of visible potential that most athletes never generate in an entire career. But Alex wasn't about to let that moment become the peak of her story. She left home. She packed up her life, crossed the world, and enrolled at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, one of the most demanding junior tennis development programs on the planet. She was a child, training under the same philosophy that shaped one of the greatest champions in the history of the sport, completing her schoolwork on the side, living thousands of miles from her family, in a foreign country, in a foreign language, missing the kind of ordinary childhood moments that most of us take completely for granted. And she did it without complaining. She did it because she already knew what she wanted. She started competing professionally in 2020 at just 14, grinding through the ITF circuit, taking losses, learning, rebuilding, improving. And then in 2022, she walked onto the court at the US Open, junior girls singles draw, and did something no Filipino had ever done before. She won it. The entire country erupted. But here's the question you have to ask, and this is where it gets really interesting. What separates a junior champion from an elite professional? Because the WTA Tour does not care about your trophies. It doesn't care about your backstory. It doesn't care about how many people showed up to cheer for you in the stands. Every single week, you have to prove yourself against the best women alive. And almost every junior champion who tries to make that leap falls short. So what made Alex different? What made the spring of 2025 inches Miami the moment that changed everything? Here's what actually happened. Alex walked into the Miami Open as a wild card, world ranked 140. She wasn't seeded. She wasn't expected. She wasn't even in most people's bracket predictions. And can you imagine what that feels like? Walking into one of the biggest tournaments in women's tennis knowing that in the eyes of the draw, you're just filler. You're the name that a top seed circles on their schedule and thinks, easy match. But Alex didn't walk in afraid. She walked in ready. And the thousands of Filipino fans who had traveled to Florida, who filled those stands in red and blue, who stayed up through the night because of the time difference, who chanted her name before a single ball had been struck, they already knew what was about to happen. Her second round match was against a player ranked 130 places higher than her. She won in 2 tiebreak sets. One upset. The internet stirred. Then she beat Madison Keys, a top 10 player, 6-4, 6-2, 2 upsets. Now the tennis world was fully paying attention. And then came the match that sent shockwaves from Miami all the way to Manila. Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, 5 Grand Slam titles. One of the most dominant players of her generation. A woman who had spent the better part of 3 years making other professionals look like they didn't belong on the same surface. And Alex, ranked 140, a wild card, a 20-year-old from Quezon City, beat her, straight sets, 6-2, 7-5. The crowd lost its mind. Commentators couldn't find the right words. And somewhere in the Philippines, an entire nation stayed awake until the sun came up just to watch it happen. She went on to reach the semifinals of that tournament, then the Eastbourne final. Then her first WTA title at the Guadalajara 125 Open in September 2025, becoming the first Filipina to ever win a WTA Challenger event. And by March 2026, she had climbed to a career-high world ranking of number 29, the highest any Filipino woman has ever been ranked in the history of professional tennis. That is the real story. And yet, while all of that was unfolding in real time, something else was happening simultaneously, something that tells us as much about the world as it does about Alex. The fake deal machine started running. First came a viral Facebook post claiming Alex had agreed to a $45 million endorsement deal with Wilson Sporting Goods. The quote attached to her name was powerful, emotional, something about giving the money to the Philippines, about lifting people up, about giving back more than she had received. It got over 100,000 likes. People shared it crying. It felt exactly like something she would say. It was completely fabricated. Then came the Emirates Airlines story, $2 million a year, first-class travel to every tournament, also fake. And then, and this is the one that genuinely staggers, the Mind post started circulating, claiming that a billionaire from Abu Dhabi had offered her a 10-year contract worth $1 billion up front and $600 million every single year after that to become the face of a new tennis championship in the UAE, $1 billion up front for a 20-year-old tennis player, and people shared it millions of times. So why does this keep happening? Here's the honest answer, and it's actually a complicated one. It happens because Filipinos love Alex with a kind of intensity that most athletes never get to feel in their lifetime. It happens because there is a genuine, desperate hunger to see someone who looks like them, who comes from where they come from, be recognized by the biggest names in the world. And when a story feels right, when it feels like justice, people want it to be true so badly that they stop asking whether it actually is. But here's the darker question underneath all of that. What does it say about the internet that the only way some people could process Alex's rise was by inventing numbers too large to comprehend? As if her real accomplishments, beating the world number 2 as a wild card, reaching the top 30 in the world, winning her first title on foreign soil somehow weren't enough. As if the truth needed to be inflated to be believed. And while all of those fake headlines were racking up shares and likes and emotional reactions, the real Alex was out there building something legitimate. Globe Telecom, who believed in her when she was 8 years old, is still with her now. Babolat supplies her racket. Nike not only put her on court, but created a Wimbledon hair tie in the shape of the Sampaguita blossom, the national flower of the Philippines. And in August 2025, they released a limited edition shirt designed by Filipino artist Georgina Camus, featuring that same national flower overlaid on the grass of the All England Club. These are not transactions, these are cultural statements. These are moments that a young woman from Quezon City made possible by being extraordinary at something no Filipino woman had ever fully conquered before. The Bank of the Philippine Islands works with her. Locally, a Filipino juice brand, Milo. In February 2026, real companies, real partnerships, real meaning, and the financial reality underneath all of it is something most people don't talk about. Running a career at the professional tennis level costs anywhere from $100,000 to $2 million a year when you add up coaching, travel, equipment, and support staff. This sport will take everything you give it and ask for more. Alex is building something real, something sustainable, not riding the wave of a viral moment, but constructing a career brick by brick, match by match, year by year. And when you ask her about all of it, about the attention, the noise, the fame, the weight of a nation's hope on her shoulders, her answers are so simple they almost sting. After her 4th-round run at the 2026 Indian Wells Open, when she was asked about the fans who stayed up all night, who sat in the cold, who traveled across the world just to watch her play, she didn't mention contracts. She didn't mention money. She said it means the world to have this community behind her, and that their effort to stay up late in the cold added to the emotions after the match. And when someone asked if she was proud of how far she'd come, she said this. Her 5-year-old self would be proud but probably not too surprised, because at that age, her imagination could go wild, and this had always been the dream. That's it. That's the whole answer. Not a fabricated acceptance speech, not a manufactured quote about billions. Just a girl who dreamed something as a child, worked for it every single day, and arrived exactly where she always believed she would. The fake stories keep spreading because people want to believe in something extraordinary. And the greatest irony of all of this is that the real Alex, the human being, the tennis player, the 20-year-old who walked into Miami as a wild card and walked out as a legend, is already more extraordinary than anything a viral post could ever invent. The real deals are coming, quietly, legitimately, on her terms, and when they arrive, they will carry the full weight of everything she actually earned. So let me ask you this, before you go, do you think the fake deal culture around athletes like Alex helps them or hurts them in the long run? Because I have a feeling you have a very specific answer to that question, and I genuinely want to hear it in the comments. If this story hit different for you, hit that subscribe button right now, because we cover the real stories behind the names you're watching. And trust me, what's coming next week is not something you want to miss.